Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Javad Hami and these are the headlines. The Taliban claim to have killed the head of Afghan government's media department in Kabul. This comes days after the group warned it would target senior officials in retaliation for increased airstrikes as foreign forces complete the withdrawal. The Israeli army says it is firing artillery at South Lebanon in retaliation to more than 10 rocket strikes. Iran-backed Hezbollah confirmed it had fired rockets in Sheba farms in response to Israel's airstrikes earlier this week. The attacks come amid rising tensions between Israel and Iran that has played out in the Persian Gulf. The US has called on Iran's new President Ibrahim Raisi to return to talks on reviving the historic 2015 nuclear deal. In a State Department spokesperson warned the window for diplomacy would not remain open forever. Raisi was sworn in yesterday, saying he will support any diplomatic plans to end sanctions on Iran. Brazil has registered nearly 1,100 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 40,000 cases. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 67 people have died, while more than 4,700 tested positive overnight. Globally, the death toll has crossed 4.2 million, with more than 200 million infections. The UK has rejected Pakistan's former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's request for an extension in his visa. PMLN spokesperson Maryam Aurangzeb said the lawyers have filed an appeal to challenge the Immigration Tribunal's decision. She said the party leader can reside in the UK legally until the appeal is decided. The International Olympic Committee has expelled 2 Belarusian coaches for allegedly forcing an athlete to leave the Games in Tokyo. The case of Kristina Timanovskaya caught global attention after she refused her team's orders to fly home. She is now in Poland, where she has been granted a humanitarian visa. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan has summoned India's envoy to register its rejection of New Delhi's illegal actions in the occupied Kashmir. Foreign Office says the chargé d'affaires was told that India must reverse its August 5th move and lift the inhumane military siege. In a statement, the office said it reminded India to refrain from demographic changes in the occupied valley and cease extrajudicial killings. The Foreign Office spokesperson called for the release of the illegally detained Kashmiri youth and political leadership. Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry also urged for the withdrawal of over 900,000 occupation troops from the territory. Pakistan says its ties with the US are moving in the right direction. National Security Advisor Mueed Yusuf says both sides are focused on outcomes and not optics. In a tweet, Yusuf said he has concluded a constructive visit to the US. The advisor said he held discussions with his US counterpart, Jake Sullivan, and think tanks. Earlier, Yusuf said Islamabad will not accept a forceful takeover in Afghanistan. In a press conference at the Pakistan embassy, he said Kabul has been trying to scapegoat Pakistan for its own failures. He urged the government of Afghanistan and the Taliban to compromise and reach a peace settlement. The Taliban claim to have killed the head of Afghan government's media department in Kabul. The Interior Minister said Dawa Khan Menapal was killed during Friday prayers. Menapal had also served as a spokesperson in President Ashraf Ghani's outreach team. The killing comes days after the Taliban warned that they would target senior officials in retaliation for increased airstrikes as foreign forces complete their withdrawal. Taliban fighters have intensified clashes with Afghan forces, stretching their dominance of border towns and closing in on 2 provincial capitals. According to Reuters, 10 Afghan soldiers were killed in the northern province of Jozjan. The US has called on Iran's new president, Ibrahim Raisi, to return to talks on reviving the historic 2015 nuclear deal. A State Department spokesperson says Washington hopes that Iran seizes the opportunity to advance diplomatic solutions. However, Ned Price warned the window for diplomacy would not remain open forever. He said at some point the benefits of reviving the pact will have been eroded by the advancements of Iran's nuclear program. He reiterated that the US will defend and advance its national security interests and those of its partners. Raisi was sworn in yesterday, saying he will support any diplomatic plans to end sanctions on Iran. The Israeli army says it is firing artillery at South Lebanon in retaliation to the more than 10 rocket strikes. In a statement, the military said most of those rockets were intercepted and the rest fell in open areas. Hezbollah confirmed it had fired rockets towards disputed Sheba farms in response to Israel's airstrikes earlier this week. There are no immediate reports of casualties from either side. The cross-border hostilities have been escalating amid tensions with Iran. Lebanese President Michel Aoun said strikes indicated the presence of Israel's aggressive intentions against Lebanon. Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz says the country's military is ready to strike Iran. This came as tensions continue to rise in the region following a deadly drone strike on an Israeli-managed tanker off the coast of Oman. In an interview, Gantz said the world needs to take action against Iran now. While Iran's foreign ministry called Israel's threat another brazen violation of international law. In a tweet, a ministry spokesperson said any foolish act against Iran will be met with a decisive response. Israel has said it provided hard evidence to allies that Iran was behind the attack on the tanker. The US and the UK also blamed Iran for the attack that killed 2 people and pledged to respond. But Iran has rejected the accusations, warning against what it called attacks on its interests. The European Union has reiterated that Israeli policy of settlement construction on occupied Palestinian territories is illegal. In a tweet, EU delegation to Palestine said the bloc members and the like-minded countries visited Baita village near Nablus city.
The delegation included representatives from the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands and Sweden. The EU said the visit comes amid rising levels of settler violence against Palestinians and the building of an illegal outpost on Mount Sabi. All participants reiterated strong opposition to Israel's settlement policy. The delegation said the total number of settler attacks in 2021 has increased by 46% compared to the same period in 2020. It said 96% of investigations by Israeli authorities into alleged acts of settler violence do not lead to the filing of an indictment. The diplomats noted Israeli security forces have killed 6 Palestinians, including 2 children, since May. They said Israeli settlers and others who are responsible for crimes against Palestinians must be held accountable. Meanwhile, British Council General Diane Corner said settlements threaten the physical viability of a 2-state solution.
The UN Security Council is set to meet today to discuss the Afghanistan crisis. It comes amid an intensified fighting between Afghan forces and the Taliban amid foreign troops withdrawal. The US says the Taliban violence and hate have never been sustainable forms of governance. In a tweet, US Chargé d'Affaires to Kabul said the group's current offensive shows it only knows violence. In a tweet, Ross Wilson said Washington urges the Taliban to choose peace. Earlier, the European Union also called for an urgent, comprehensive and permanent ceasefire in Afghanistan. In a statement, the body said the Taliban should be held accountable for rights violations in areas under their control. An armed group has killed at least 30 people in a series of attacks in villages across northern Burkina Faso. In a statement, the Defense Ministry said the military killed 10 attackers and had regained control of the area. The ministry noted the victims included 11 civilians, 15 soldiers, and 4 government-allied militia members. It said attackers also stole cattle and set properties on fire. It added, the counteroffensive to find the assailants is ongoing on the ground and in the air. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Now, Brazil has registered nearly 1,180 deaths from COVID-19 and over 40,000 cases. Globally, the death toll has crossed 4.2 million with more than 200 million infections. More in this report.
With highly contagious Delta variant sweeping the world and vaccine issues, the hopes of returning to normalization have dampened. Since Sinovac showed only less than 60% effectiveness, Chile has announced to give a booster jab to those who received this shot. In the US, the world's worst hit country from COVID-19, new daily infections have climbed to a 6-month high. The Delta variant ravaged Florida and other states with lower vaccination rates. The White House also confirmed that it is considering requiring foreign visitors to be vaccinated.
The administration certainly understands the importance of international travel, and given where we are today, as Dr. Walensky showed us earlier, on the prevalence of the Delta variant, the United States will maintain the existing travel restrictions at this point.
China has reported its highest daily count for new coronavirus cases in its current outbreak, fueled by a surge in locally transmitted infections. South Korea has announced to extend its social distancing curbs by 2 weeks as more people fall severely ill. In Australia, more than half of the population woke up to hard lockdowns as the country battles to contain Delta outbreaks. Sydney reported another record number of new infections, while authorities warned residents to brace for worse to come.
But unfortunately, we had an increase in case numbers from yesterday to 291 cases of community transmission. There are a number of cases still under examination, but at least 50 of those were infectious in the community. And I do want to foreshadow that given this high number of cases, we're likely to see this trend continue for the next few days.
Over in Europe, Greece has imposed a nighttime curfew on 2 popular tourist islands to contain the spread of COVID-19. In Germany, health ministers' plan to place restrictions on unvaccinated people is facing stiff resistance from his coalition partners and the opposition.
In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed another 67 lives overnight, taking the death toll to 23,702. The health ministry says more than 4,700 people tested positive for the virus in the past 24 hours. The caseload has now crossed 1,058,000. Meanwhile, more than 954,000 people have recovered so far. The number of active cases is nearing 80,000, of which more than 4,100 are critical. The ministry says the positivity rate of overnight infections was 8.18. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The UK has rejected Pakistan's former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's request for an extension in his visa. Sharif's party spokesperson said he can challenge the decision in the immigration tribunal. PMLN spokesperson Maryam Aurangzeb said the lawyers have filed the appeal. Aurangzeb said the party leader can reside in the UK legally until the appeal is decided. Pakistan's government advised Sharif to get a temporary passport and return to Pakistan to face the courts. Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry said Sharif's appeal will possibly be rejected as he is not sick. Chaudhry said the former Prime Minister might have to serve jail time for lying about it. Sharif has been living in London since November 2019 after he was allowed to leave the country for medical treatment. PMLN's political opponents have been talking about widening cracks in your party. How will this situation in the UK affect party cohesion?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As you know, that the application for the extension of the visa of the former Prime Minister Mohammed Nawaz Sharif has been rejected by the Home Office UK with the categoric note that he has a right to appeal in the Immigration Tribunal, the process has been triggered and the application has been filed for that. And till the time when the Immigration Tribunal gives the final decision and attains finality, the Home Office decision is ineffective till that time. So I think it will be premature to comment on what will be the decision of the Immigration Tribunal. I think we'll have to wait and let the lawyers do their work according to the right of appeal that the former Prime Minister has in Immigration Tribunal in UK.
So, Mariam, what would be PMLN's course of action if the tribunal upholds the decision of the Home Office?
I think it is more evident on the part of this weak government that it is, they're just celebrating because they have nothing to say about what their performance has been for last 3 years. And if you look at the situation of economy, if you look at unemployment, inflation in the country for last 3 years, and many more scandals that we have seen in last 3 years about corruption, their allegations in the court have been defeated and no evidence has been put forward by the government or NAB in courts like in Lahore High Court or in Islamabad High Court. So they can only celebrate on these false accusations that they have been putting to the opposition and also to the former Prime Minister and Chief Minister Punjab Shehbaz Sharif. So there's nothing to celebrate, but I can understand their situation because they have nothing else to say other than continuing their false accusation agenda on the opposition. The Prime Minister, if you remember, I want to draw your attention to the fact that when the Prime Minister was shifted from NAB to Services Hospital, his health situation deteriorated while he was in NAB, and then a medical board was formed by Punjab government in Services Hospital that recommended that the former Prime Minister's health is deteriorating and the treatment cannot happen in Pakistan. So on their application to Lahore High Court, the permission was granted to the former Prime Minister and then later by the Islamabad High Court, and the Punjab government and the federal government gave permission for the Prime Minister and recommended that he should travel to UK for his treatment as his platelets were going down. So while they are celebrating the fact and they're also continuing to feed and say that he has ran away, so the former Prime Minister is, by all means here. And because they're scared of him, because they're scared of his political strength.
Ms. Mariam Aurangzeb, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. We really appreciate your time. And now moving on, for more on this, we are joined by Mr. Ahmed Jawad, PTI Information Secretary with us. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Jawad. Did the PTI government play any role to pursue the UK government in making this decision of not extending Nawaz Sharif's stay?
Okay, first of all, I would like to clarify that in case of Nawaz Sharif case, bringing back to the country, it is not a case of any personal vendetta. It is a case of rule of law. So if we are trying to bring back Nawaz Sharif, it is based on the rule of law. He's convicted. He's required here in Pakistan by the court decision. And he left the country based on health conditions, and he was supposed to return after 3 months, which he never. So obviously, he's required back to Pakistan according to the law, according to the court decisions. And on the other hand, he has extended his stay on political reasons, which definitely is not based on health reasons anymore, as all of us can see. That he is walking around in London, hale and hearty, and he's healthy, no problem. So the current decision by the UK authorities not granting extension to Nawaz Sharif is definitely about the local laws in UK. Obviously, PTI government, as like I said, the rule of law, we have been pursuing officially and informing UK authorities that he's a convicted and he was given permission to leave the country for health reason, and he should be sent back. So obviously we did pursue, but on official grounds and based on merit, not any personal vendetta with Nawaz Sharif.
So, Mr. Jawad, how has Nawaz's prolonged stay affected his popularity among Pakistanis?
I think this is according to the political traditions in Pakistan, where political figures, when the political environment is not suitable to their designs, they leave the country and then they try to create political influence remotely. We can compare it with the past precedent where Nawaz Sharif agreed to leave the country and under an agreement with Musharraf and stayed for many years in Saudi Arabia, and then he made a comeback. And then we also have the examples of Benazir Bhutto, Asif Ali Zardari, Altaf Hussain. So it is something which has been done in the past, and they try to reinvent their political stature by staying abroad, by staying away from the law of Pakistan, and they try to redesign their political agenda. And this is exactly what Nawaz Sharif is also trying to do, and staying away from the court decision under which he was supposed to be in the jail, not living a luxurious life in London.
Mr. Jawad, now the PMLN is accusing PTI of politicizing Nawaz Sharif's health. How do you respond to that?
Political criticism, yes, it is part of politics, and especially in case of Nawaz Sharif, who is a convict, and under this government, by making a commitment to this government, he left the country and he was supposed to come back. So obviously we will criticize his stay in London and his political ambition, which he's trying to carry out in Pakistan remotely from London, and not facing the law of Pakistan here in Pakistan, or courts of Pakistan. So obviously it's a matter of criticism based on merit, and which PTI obviously is criticizing.
Mr. Ahmed Jawad, thank you very much for your time at Indus News. We really appreciate that. And now, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi is speaking at the ASEAN Forum. Let's watch live.
In countries to recover from the COVID-19 induced recession and to restore them on the path to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Excellencies, terrorism remains a threat to our societies. For more than a decade, Pakistan has suffered the most due to terrorism, at times supported and sponsored from across the borders. Thousands of precious lives have been lost, including those of civilians, armed forces personnel, and officials of law enforcement agencies. Pakistan has been pursuing a comprehensive national action plan to deal with the menace of terrorism. Pakistan has also made significant progress in anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism domain. We have put in place an elaborate regulatory mechanism to meet the FATF requirements. Pakistan strongly condemns terrorist activities, whether perpetrated by individuals, groups, or states, resulting in violence or threat of violence. We must not allow any country to use terrorism-related allegations as a political tool to malign and victimize entire nations and societies. We must condemn and hold accountable the perpetrators of state terrorism against people under illegal occupation in disputed territories. Islamophobia also needs to be addressed in an effective manner. It is essential to recognize that the freedom of expression has to be exercised with responsibility. It cannot and should not translate into freedom to blasphemy and willfully hurt the sentiments of almost 2 billion Muslims. We must also unanimously condemn the resurgence of fascist tendencies and hypernationalism anywhere in the world, and especially in our region. Excellencies, peaceful resolution of long-standing disputes is an essential prerequisite for achieving prosperity, progress, and social uplift of our peoples. We strongly condemn unilateral and illegal measures by states to alter the demographics of disputed territories in violation of international law and the UN Security Council resolutions. Such unilateral measures undermine our efforts to create a regional environment of amity and cooperation and must be resolutely opposed. In this context, Pakistan strongly underscores the importance of upholding and implementing the UN Security Council resolutions. This remains the only way to durable peace and stability in the region. Excellencies, a peaceful and stable Afghanistan is indispensable for regional peace. There is no military solution to the conflict. Pakistan steadfastly supports an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned peace process and will continue to facilitate an inclusive, broad-based and comprehensive negotiated political settlement. It is important to vigilantly guard against the spoilers seeking to undermine the peace process in Afghanistan. It is also vital that the international community does not repeat the mistakes of the past and remains engaged with the post-conflict Afghanistan for its reconstruction and economic development. Furthermore, the repatriation of Afghan refugees should be an essential part of the peace negotiations. Excellencies, in the Southeast Asian and regional context, Pakistan continues to strongly support an inclusive approach with ASEAN centrality as the underlying principle for cooperation. Pakistan also believes that maintenance of peace and security in the South China Sea should be ensured through consultations and negotiations by parties directly concerned. We support China and the ASEAN working out the code of conduct to address the disputed claims. Excellencies, Pakistan remains committed to comprehensively upgrade its overall relationship with the ASEAN. Since becoming partner of ASEAN Regional Forum in 2004, Pakistan has been actively supporting and participating in its programs. Pakistan proudly announces that it will co-host the 24th ARF Heads of Defense Universities meeting with Malaysia in 2021. Pakistan has co-chaired such a meeting with Singapore in November 2019. Pakistan will continue to support ARF initiatives for a secure, prosperous and stable Asia Pacific. I thank you.
Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi was speaking at the ASEAN Forum. And now moving on, in Pakistan, as per the orders of Prime Minister Imran Khan, the restoration of a Hindu temple has begun in the city of Rahim Yar Khan. The Prime Minister has also ordered police to ensure the arrest of all those involved in the attack. Taking notice of the incident, the Chief Justice of Pakistan ordered an immediate arrest of the culprits. Information Minister Fawad Chaudhary said Pakistan is a progressive country where minorities are fully protected. He said perpetrators will be held accountable. While violence against the Muslim minority continues with impunity in India, Pakistan is committed to protecting its Hindu community.
ये बहुत खुशी है वज़ीर आज़म साहब ने इस मामले का ज़ाती नोटिस लिया.
I am very happy that both the Prime Minister and Chief Justice of Pakistan took personal notice of this incident. Those who harmed our Hindu brothers should be strictly punished, and we should stand up against all those who are targeting Pakistanis on the basis of race, color, or faith. Inshallah, Pakistan's future is of a progressive country where minorities are fully protected.
Prime Minister Imran Khan has expressed satisfaction over the steps being taken to ensure effective border control and internal security. He said this during a visit to Peshawar Corps headquarters. Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa accompanied the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister lauded security forces for providing an enabling environment for the completion of uplift projects in the newly merged districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. He also appreciated troops for assisting the civil administration in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The US and South Korea have agreed to continue diplomatic efforts for engaging North Korea. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and South Korean Foreign Minister Song Kyu-yong discussed the matter in a phone call. South Korea's foreign ministry said the two leaders stressed the goal of complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. Meanwhile, State Department said the secretary confirmed US support for inter-Korean dialogue and engagement. Last week, both Koreas restored the hotlines that Pyongyang severed a year ago. Seoul's officials say leaders of both the states are seeking to repair the strained ties and resume summits. Tunisia's President Kais Saied says there is no turning back from the decision to freeze parliament and assume executive power. In a video message, Saied rejected calls for talks over the crisis branded as a coup by the Tunisian opposition. He said no dialogue was possible with what he called cancer cells. The biggest party in parliament, Ennahda, called for the talks earlier. The US as well as France have urged Saied to quickly appoint a new government. Meanwhile, Tunisia's labor union is preparing a roadmap to end the crisis that it says it will present to Saied. In North Korea, flash floods due to heavy rains have caused immense destruction along the country's east coast. The state media said thousands of people were evacuated while hundreds of homes were damaged. It said farms and roads have also washed away. The reports come as concern grows about damage to crops and its potential impact on food supplies in North Korea. The country is cut off from most foreign imports and aid by international sanctions. In Greece, hundreds of people have been evacuated from an island near Athens as the region braced for the fourth day of wildfires. Temperatures have been over 40 degrees Celsius all week, while gale force winds are expected to spread the flames further. More in this report.
As searing conditions persist in Greece, the Civil Protection Authority has issued an extreme fire warning for half the country. Coast Guard vessels assisted by tourist boats picked up 631 people from 3 beaches on the island of Evia. The flames have burned through a vast area of pine forest on the island and reached the sea. The skies of Athens are again clouded by thick smoke. Wildfires on the northern outskirts of the city have burst back into life after dying down earlier in the week. Crews with water-bombing aircraft tried to prevent the flames from reaching the nearby town of Marathon. Meanwhile, villagers in the western Peloponnese refused to evacuate their homes.
Leave and go where? And let my house burn? If we had left, this place would have burned. We told the women and elderly and the kids to go, and whoever was able to stay to help us, however they could.
The blazes have erupted across Southeast Europe as a heat wave is baking the region for a second week. North Macedonia's government has also declared the country in a state of crisis for the next 30 days due to wildfires. Meanwhile, battling blazes for over a week, Turkey says it aims to bring all of them under control on Friday. Authorities said efforts are underway to put out the 13 fires in 6 provinces.
China's rover Yurong has traveled for more than 800 meters on Mars, including over complicated terrain. The China National Space Administration says the rover has worked on the surface of the red planet for 82 Martian days. The rover has been in orbit for 379 days and is functioning properly. Meanwhile, China has launched another communication satellite into space aboard a Long March 3B carrier rocket. The Zhongxing 2E can provide transmission services for radio, television, and broadband multimedia for national institutions. The launch is 383rd flight mission of the Long March carrier rocket series. In Tokyo Olympics, Italy, Cuba and the UK are among others to clinch gold medals on the 13th day of the Games. China leads the medal standings with 34 golds, followed by the US on 30 and host Japan 22. More in this report.
Day 14 of the Games is scheduled to feature a total of 23 medal events. Laura Kenny has become the first British female Olympian to claim gold in 3 consecutive Games. She won the women's medicine race alongside Katie Archibald. Italy's Antonella Palmisano won the women's Olympic 20-kilometer race walk, bringing her country its first gold medal in the event. Team US bagged the gold in the women's beach volleyball by defeating Australia. Poland's David Tomela won the gold medal with a dominant performance in the men's 50-kilometer race walk. Meanwhile, Britain earned the bronze medal in the women's hockey tournament after a hard-fought 4-3 win over India. Britain Lauren Price qualified for the gold medal round after beating Dutch opponent Nutschka Fonten in the women's middleweight boxing. Cuba's La Cruz won the men's heavyweight boxing gold medal after beating Russia's Muslim Gadzhimagomedov.
2 Belarusian coaches have lost their Olympic accreditations after allegedly attempting to force an athlete to leave the Games in Tokyo. The International Olympic Committee has also confirmed that Arthur Shimak and Yuri Masevich had left the Olympic Village. The case of Kristina Timanovskaya caught global attention after she refused her team's orders to fly home. She is now in Poland, where she has been granted a humanitarian visa. The case has again put the spotlight on Belarus, which has been ruled by President Alexander Lukashenko since 1994. Last year, nationwide protests over his disputed re-election were violently repressed by the security forces. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.